Vorbim despre noul normal afectat de pandemie, dar uităm că lumea înseamnă și ceilalți. Nordul Africii este încă o rană deschisă, iar ceea ce se întâmplă acolo afectează și Europa. Cu toate acestea, suntem prea puțin atenți la zonele aflate la mare distanță. Spunem în continuare prea ușor, aceasta nu este problema mea și trecem mai departe. În nordul continentului african, teroriștii se regrupează, iar statele mari încă își duc războaiele prin interpuși. Este doar o chestiune de timp ca rezultatul acțiunilor care se întâmplă acolo să ajungă și la noi. Invitatul meu de astăzi este Koert Debeuf, redactorul-șef al publicației Observer și un fin cunoscător al lumii arabe din zilele noastre. Sunt Cristina Cileacu, începe Pașaport diplomatic. Koert Debeuf, editor-in-chief of the EU Observer and a specialist of the Arab world. Welcome to Diplomatic Passport.
Thank you very much.
Este suficient să ne uităm la harta Africii de Nord ca să înțelegem cât de importantă este această regiune pentru stabilitatea și securitatea Europei. Milioane de oameni trăiesc pe celălalt mal al Mării Mediterane, adică în vecinătatea continentului nostru. Sunt puțin peste 200 de kilometri între coasta tunisiană și cea italiană, iar între Maroc și Spania sunt doar 15 kilometri. Zona a fost colonizată, iar această amprentă a schimbat cultura de acolo, care este mai apropiată de cea sud-europeană decât de cea africană. Cu toate acestea, încă acordăm prea puțin atenție Africii de Nord.
My proposal for you today is to talk about the Northern Africa, the entire region, because the pandemic of COVID-19 hit hard that area as well, and we have to remember that over there that we have ongoing wars and also non-functional, or let's say less functional economies. Can this new situation lead to other type of movements in the region?
Well, that is a very good question. What I do see in general is that that the governments, and because of the Arab Spring, people do not trust their government anymore. And when they do not trust the government anymore, they are not willing to follow a lot of, well, measures that the government wants to take. So I just give you an example, is that in Cairo and the richer areas, people do follow measures and keep distance from each other. When you go to the poorer areas, who have been left behind for a very long time, people refuse to follow up these measures. And also, for one reason is because they distrust, they don't believe the government anymore, they don't follow the rules anymore. But there is also no police that is there in order to force the rules upon them. So which means that we will see, no doubt, an increase of corona cases in the poorer areas, in the poorer population of these countries in Northern Africa. The second problem is that the health system has been underinvested in for a very long time. So there are no places enough, so the hospitals are already full, while the peak is not reached yet at all. So the cases are growing, and at the same time, we see that the hospitals are full, so people can't be taken care of anymore. So if that situation is becoming really dramatic, then this might perhaps also create some new unrest, some new distrust, again in government from all sides of the people. Will this lead to new revolutions? I find this very hard to say at this moment.
Situația din Libia a ajuns să fie la fel de complicată precum cea din Siria și aici se bate toată lumea cu toată lumea. O tabără în spatele guvernului oficial recunoscut de Națiunile Unite, cealaltă susține un general din fosta armata lui Muammar Gaddafi, doar că alianțele internaționale sunt puțin diferite față de cele din Orientul Mijlociu, iar interesul strategic este Marea Mediterană.
Let's take each country at a time, and let's start with the worst, which would be Libya, because we have an ongoing war over there. And also, okay, the government is fighting with the forces led by General Khalifa Haftar, but on the other hand, each part has its own supporters. The main would be Egypt and Turkey and Russia as well. Do you see any winners in this long war, considering all this?
Well, until a few months ago, one could say or think that Haftar was on the winning hand, so the general from the eastern side of the country. But then indeed Turkey said, okay, we are going to support the UN-backed government of Sarraj, which made things more complicated. And then all sides started to come in. So although the French, for example, and the Egyptians and the Emirates were already on the ground supporting Haftar, they were helped then by Russia also coming and supporting Haftar with 800 mercenaries, which is quite something. But then the Turks doubled their efforts. They brought Syrian militias to Libya. And at this moment, I mean, this is becoming a really proxy international conflict of a scale on which, indeed, I think no one can really win this. But one of the questions that is perhaps not important is, I mean, if I see conflicts worldwide in the last, let's say, 50 years, I mean, when does a country go from war to peace? And usually that moment is when both sides realize that they can't win the war anymore. And so far on the camp of Haftar, he believed he still could win the war. And I think this is changing right now. He is losing support, he is losing ground. So by realizing this, I think maybe this might give us a new situation by which peace talks will be possible again.
But do you think in the case of this conflict, you mentioned a few countries led by Egypt supporting Haftar, but also Egypt created something that it's calling the anti-Turkey alliance in the Mediterranean Sea, because Turkey wants to impose its presence in the region. So do you think this would be the new type of war or a different escalation of the situation?
Oh, I mean, since actually 2013, when the Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi from the Muslim Brotherhood was deposed in Egypt, and who was very much supported by Erdogan in Turkey, we see two camps in the Middle East. I mean, so this is since 7 years. The one camp I would call the revolutionary camp, who believed in the Arab Spring, but as a revolution to bring more Islamic society in some way. And in that camp we had indeed the Muslim Brotherhood everywhere, also in Libya, but mainly in Egypt. You had Erdogan from Turkey, you have Qatar, you have Hamas in Palestine, but also Iran actually are on the same side. The other sides are against everything that is revolution, and they want to status quo, they want military power, they want stability. The main country there is Saudi Arabia, and also the Emirates, Egypt, and in a way there's also Russia on their side. So we have seen this conflict between those countries going on more or less in Syria. We see it now full-blown in Libya, and these two camps are already becoming more divided, more polarized, which is dangerous for the stability of the entire region.
De aproape 20 de ani, lumea se concentrează pe combaterea terorismului din Afganistan, Irak, Siria și Yemen. Extremismul din Africa de Nord pare cumva lăsat pe locul 2 și nu ar trebui, mai ales că Europa a avut de suferit de pe urma atacurilor provocate de jihadiștii nord-africani.
Where do you see the presence of European Union in this case? Because usually it helps with a lot of money. In case of Mali, for instance, it also helps with some troops. But can European Union do more in these cases?
Well, absolutely, the European Union can do more and should do more. one of the big problems of the European Union is the fact that it is divided. For example, on Libya, it is very clear that France is on the side of Haftar, while Italy is on the side of Sarraj. And there is no real position of the EU except that they support the United Nations. But a real policy of the EU has not happened because of this division. You also see that despite EU policy towards, for example, Egypt saying, okay, we have some European neighborhood policy money, but then we have also conditions that all European member states don't care about this at all and just sell arms to Egypt without any conditions. So Europe is divided, and which, certainly on the neighborhood, which makes it weak. I mean, what could the EU, for example, do in Libya? I think the option that must be thought of is first of all, unite. Secondly, to have boots on the ground, a kind of peace force, because Libya is a terrible civil war, and we can only stop this, I think, by intervening and have a political peace process at the same time. Germany has taken the lead in this, which is good because Germany is independent in this entire battle between European member states. I mean, we should combine these two things. But just sending boats, like with the Irini operation, boats to stop arms smuggling, is a crazy idea in a way that the arms that came by sea came from Turkey, while the other camp was armed over land by Saudi Arabia and the Emirates and Egypt. So it was like this operation was set up against Turkey and against one side. So now Turkey has built an air bridge and is now flying in armed. So I mean, Europe is doing symbolic actions that are actually only meant to stop migration. And with only having this idea and this policy in mind, you will never solve a conflict like the Libyan one.
What about United States? Because the intention, at least the intention declared of the United States, was to send some military trained personnel in Tunisia as a response of Russia sending jets in Libya. Do you think, considering now the situation in the United States with everything we see today in the news, that they will get involved in another conflict in another part of the world?
Well, they might, but I don't think it's going to be Libya. I mean, they had one ambassador being killed in Libya, which was, of course, also during the electoral campaign, a very, very sensitive subject, which President Trump has used as much as he could against his opponent, Hillary Clinton. So having a few military personnel in Tunisia doesn't mean a lot. What they have done in Syria was much more important, but then they pulled out and then came back again, lost credibility in Syria. I mean, if they're going to be involved in a war, which I would not believe would happen, but if there's a reason to do that, then it's probably just that Trump realizes that this is perhaps the only way to get the people together behind him in the United States. I think if there's going to be an involvement in the war, it's for domestic reasons rather than for international or peace reasons.
Sahel înseamnă statele africane din zona subsahariană. Această regiune este noul front deschis împotriva terorismului. Al-Qaeda și ISIS sunt încă prezențe puternice în zonă și în ultimii ani au colaborat pentru a teroriza populația. Pandemia de COVID-19 le-a diminuat resursele și acum se luptă între ele pentru dominație.
If we look in the region of Sahel, we've noticed in the time of pandemic that Al-Qaeda started to fight Daesh, ISIS. What does this mean for the people in the region?
Daesh and Al-Qaeda has been fighting each other almost since the very beginning. Of course, Daesh came out of Al-Qaeda but then were split because there was a row between al-Zarqawi, who was actually the first leader of Daesh, and Ayman al-Zawahiri from Al-Qaeda or Osama bin Laden, who thought he was too extreme. So they have been fighting for this jihadi leadership a bit everywhere where they have been. The problem, of course, is certainly if you go to the Sahel, I mean, there are many. I mean, the problems there are massive. There's right now there's some drought, there is hunger, there is a locust plague that is going over over Ethiopia to the east. Sorry, to the west. Then there is the pandemic. So there is so much elements that create not just poverty, that create chaos, that are difficult to handle, and these kind of chaotic situations are ideal for organizations such as Daesh and Al-Qaeda to pop up again. So we can see this in Syria and Iraq, where they are reorganizing. We have seen this in Libya since a long time, that they are there, being small, but some 600 persons. And then more to the south, where the Sahel has become just an enormous highway of human trafficking, arms and drug smuggling. And as long as these conflicts are still there, mainly in Libya, these borders are just non-existing. And this is an ideal situation for violent groups like Daesh, like Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda, and so forth, just to wander around and terrorize even more parts of sub-Saharan Africa and the Sahara and North Africa all at the same time.
But do you think, since you mentioned that ISIS is regrouping itself in the eastern Syria or in areas of Iraq, do you think that when the world is coming to the new normal, how we say it now, we shall see a new type of terrorism as well, or shall we expect even more attacks in the future?
Well, I mean, because we are so focused on the coronavirus today, I mean, we do not see that there are attacks of Daesh in Syria, in Iraq. I mean, even in Asia, I mean, these attacks are going on. I believe that in the last few weeks, there were 50 attacks from Daesh in Western Asia and even in Middle Asia. So this is happening today. So it is already there. It is already dangerous. The regrouping is there, and at some point that will come back to the West, no doubt. So the problem is that we are so focused on our own problems now, and this is normal, but we forget what is happening there. And from the moment the pandemic is a bit over, we will wake up and see that we have forgotten about a renewed terrorist group that is just very strong again. I've been warning for this already months ago, even not years ago, so that one thing we could do is bring back our own foreign fighters, their wives and their children. Governments don't want to do this because of political reasons. I understand that, but by not doing this, we leave those people there. They will escape prisons, as they have already done, and they will just become a new global threat. So, and that is exactly what is happening now.
Egipt este cea mai importantă țară din Nordul Africii și, din păcate, și cea mai lovită de prezența coronavirusului. Spitalele de acolo nu mai fac față numărului mare de bolnavi, dar principala preocupare a președintelui Abdel Sisi rămâne propria imagine, așa că arestează și mai des jurnaliști, dar și cetățeni care postează pe internet comentarii negative la adresa lui.
You know very well Egypt. It's, let's say, your main focus normally. And in Egypt, people were already turned towards silence by President Sisi for various reasons, especially those who were attacking him more or less directly. With this pandemic, did the situation change? I mean, did he take advantage of the fact that people had to stay in house and not to go outside? To revenge against his opponents?
Absolutely. So I'm not sure if the pandemic is the reason, but I mean, it's surely a fact that the last 2 weeks, more journalists, bloggers, people, influencers on social media have been arrested and been accused of being members of terrorist organizations, destabilizing the state and so forth. All these ridiculous accusations to people who are just writing some messages on Twitter or Facebook. So even the editor-in-chief of Madame Masser, the most independent newspaper of Egypt, and she was arrested, but then there was a wave of protest, and then she was released again. But only a few days ago, I mean, one journalist resurfaced after 10 days of disappearance. So this state terror is just continuing and is even intensifying as we speak.
Koert Debeuf, thank you so much for this interview. Looking forward to have you again at the Diplomatic Passport next time.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Atât pentru astăzi, dar rămânem în continuare online pe pagina de Facebook a emisiunii și pe contul nostru de Twitter. Revenim cu subiecte noi din lumea diplomației vinerea viitoare de la ora obișnuită 11:30. La revedere!